What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to part 4 of the How to Dominate Textbook Season with BookMine. In today's video, we're going to really dive into the listings and look at who the sellers are on these listings, because sometimes we come across mega sellers and we want to kind of avoid those listings sometimes. So before we get into that, what's going on, Victor?
How's it going? I love our topic, how to dominate textbook season. And college books are definitely a way to do it. And just another great video here. So
awesome.
Go.
Let's do it. All right, everybody. So you might be on here over on BookMine. You might specifically be looking for college textbooks or just scrolling through, and you'll often notice books that, again, have this textbook seasonality, which we've talked about in other videos in the series. But what we wanted to do was show you some listings of, the different sellers. And for example, you come across a book, Introduction to, Industrial Organizational Psychology. You go down to the Keepa listing, you can see some seasonality, and you go, okay, well, today's buy price around 25 looks pretty good. I mean, August, September, and January, this was in the 60s. Often, probably the buy box price is even higher than that. And one thing that we always recommend, Victor, is to check the listing. And what are we sort of looking for on the offers page here, Victor?
We want to just like a normal list of sellers. Basically, we want to check to see how many units each seller has, because people will tell you how many sellers are on the listing, but not how many units that seller has. So we want to go down and make sure that none of these mega sellers that sell FBA have a lot of units. So we're kind of scrolling down. We're kind of seeing, okay, 1 unit, 2 units. These aren't worrisome for us, right? Because it's like, okay, everything's fine here. What will be like a red flag for us is if a FBA seller has a ton of units in stock, and that will tend to push us off the listing. Probably not be really interested in purchasing that book.
Absolutely. You can see Rock City Books here has a total of 64. So you have to think about this logically, everyone, right? Remember that the sales rank, right, or the number of green sales rank drops that we see here during the textbook season gives us an indicator of okay, well, how often is a book actually selling? And for books that don't sell very often, right, the more copies that there are available, the more difficult it is for us to sell our book. And also the harder it is for the prices to go up. And the reverse is also true. If there's very few sellers or there's not very much supply out there, then obviously used prices can go up very easily. In this case, like Victor mentioned, this particular book, we're scrolling through the first, few offers, and we got maybe 3 at the most. I mean, nothing's looking that bad. I mean, this is kind of what we want. We want copies that are lower, and then it starts shooting up. That's a good sign. When we click filter and look for prime, we have to, again, remember that we are competing against prime sellers. And what we're really doing is looking out for, does anyone in particular have a lot, specifically any mega booksellers? And like Victor mentioned, hey, 64 on a book like this, Victor, would that, would that deter you from wanting to buy this book?
Oh, it definitely would, because let's just look at those seasons, right? August and September, and then January. Each one of those seasons, I'd say maybe 100 copies were sold during that time. I can't tell you specifically, exactly, but I'm saying probably 100 during those 2 seasons. So 200 altogether, but 100 during the season. And so if Rock City Books has 64 of the 100 books that we could potentially sell that season, they're kind of owning the market. And this book is going to be a completely different book than it was in January, because they're going to kind of own most of that market this coming season. So that's the reason why in that particular book, I wouldn't be interested in it. But let's just say they only had 10 copies. Okay, well, 10% of the market's not so bad. I more than likely would still be interested.
This is something that you all get better at with experience as you go through some textbook seasons and you understand sales rank a little bit better. Yeah. And obviously when you actually look at the Keepa graph and you look at when that sales rank, starts getting low and how long it stays low and how low it gets, that will help you over time understand, okay, 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 60, at what point does it become, too much of the market that is being held by one seller? Now, one other thing that we should mention is that, Rock City Books isn't the only mega textbook seller or mega seller that you should look out for. Victor, we also have Amazon Warehouse, which is actually rebranded to Amazon Resale now, which is really interesting.
Right. That just happened, actually.
Yeah, that just happened. Yeah. And we have Rent2You, and we also have Apex Media, and we also have eCampus, all right? So those are going to be some of those larger mega textbook sellers. And the reason why we want to avoid them is because they tend to have a lot of offers, and not all of them, but particularly some of them, Victor, and you can go into this, which of those, but some of them also are very aggressive in order to win the buy box, meaning they're not shy to tank prices. So can you kind of go over that idea of, tanking prices? And a book that comes to mind is let's say a book like this, for example.
Well, we're going to quickly go into for the first one being Rock City, right? So Rock City Books tends to be really aggressive in their repricing. So they don't care if they're like the price is going down from 30 to 20 to 10. They're going to keep going down and repricing down with you. And they're going to keep winning the buy box because they're a mega seller at FBA. And so they tend to really give priority, to that type of company. So, when you see Rock City on that listing and with that many copies, that's why I kind of said probably don't, steer away from that. Next up would be Renu. Now, Renu won't compete with you on price. What they'll do is they'll just own the buy box because of how big of a company they are. So even if they're like $20, $30 overpriced, like over the price of you, would still own the buy box, and you would have to kind of compete with whatever is left. And so when Renu has a lot of copies, that's when I tend to also not go on that listing. But the others aren't so bad. So the other two would be Apex Media and eCampus. They'll compete with you penny by penny, and you can win the buy box from them. And so that's not so much of an issue if they have more copies. And the last one being Amazon Warehouse. And what do you think about Amazon Warehouse, Jody?
Ooh, Amazon Warehouse. So what we're going to do again is look at this listing. There's actually on the Keepa chart a button called Warehouse Deals, which would reference Amazon Warehouse, now rebranded to Amazon Resale. If we look at the used offer page, you can see this is ships from Amazon, sold by Amazon Resale. This used to say Amazon Warehouse Deals. Now it just says Amazon Resale. They've got 301 in stock. And what you'll notice with particularly Amazon Resale or Amazon Warehouse is they tend to price tank to the bottom. Like they're willing to take any book, no matter how expensive it was, basically to just get rid of the book, right? They just want to get rid of the book, get it out of the warehouse, sell the book. Honestly, don't even really matter what they sell it at. And you can see how this book in January was basically $100. And then now all of a sudden it's, you could pick it up for about $10.44. And they're likely just going to keep going down, 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 and down. And this book is basically going to be ruined for this next textbook season because they got 300 units in stock. And this book might sell 250, might sell up to 500 times during the textbook season, but they're just owning, again, probably well over 50% of the market, which is going to make it very hard. So some other nuances, Victor, that we also need to talk about is the difference between Mega Booksellers when they're FBM versus when they're FBA. So really quick, everyone, remember, Fulfillment by Amazon has the Prime Check. Fulfillment by Merchant does not have the Prime Check. We are competing against the Prime Check offers. So he talked to us a little bit about, is our strategy about buying a book change when there is the Mega Bookseller, but it's FBM versus when it's FBA?
Yeah. So if we have a FBM Mega Bookseller, we're not so worried about them when we're trying to sell our book, right? We kind of think of their price. Let's just say they have 200 copies of any of the books that we just kind of went through, and their price is, say, $15. Well, that is probably what the lowest merchant fulfilled price is going to be during the season. And that's fine. That's $15. But that doesn't mean that's going to be the FBA price. So almost where I find kind of like the ceiling for the FBA price is where you can still make about $10 in profit above in FBA. So at $15, that'd probably be about $40. So that's probably where the max price is going to be on the FBA. And so there's still money to be made there. But again, I'm not really worried about a mega seller at FBM. I am concerned, again, like we both said, if it's FBA.
Absolutely. All right, Victor, with that said, when we come across books that we find with BookMine that are college textbooks and we do the checks, we make sure that, there aren't any large textbook sellers, mega booksellers on them, or if there are, they've got, a reasonable or limited amount relative to the demand, then, we can think about potentially purchases. We can think about potentially purchasing that book. So, for example, this book, Seeing Ourselves, notice that it doesn't actually have an image yet, but there's obviously an image of the book. It's just there isn't one that someone has actually added to this listing for some reason. But this is a book that last September, October, had, definitely sells in the 50s, even up into the 60s.
Yeah.
Also has a little bit of seasonality in January. Not really a book that sells a ton. Although you can still see how big of a difference, the offer count swings 54 down to 14. So, we got at least 40, 50 copies selling during this textbook season. Today's offer count is good. It's right around 40. It was about 49 a year ago. So we're heading into the season with some good signs, but we got to check.
Tons of green checks.
Tons of green checks.
Yeah, right.
So we got to add, see if there are more green checks. So we have, a couple offers at 16, actually maybe 7 or 8 offers at 16. And then it starts going up into that, larger price. And again, so here's an FBM seller, 35. Considered, a mega seller, but FBM, not super worried about them. We're really worried about if there are potentially any FBA mega booksellers. So I'm going to go and click the filter for Prime. It looks like we only have 3 Prime offers at $16. Going into the season, those Prime offers are going to be those are going to be like the first offers off, right? Prime always is going to have priority. And when the prices are basically the same as FBM, those are going to be the first ones gone, right?
Right.
So those ones are going to be gone here pretty quickly, those FBA offers. The question is, do we have any mega textbook sellers with a lot? So, by the way, Jensen Books is also a mega bookseller. You can see how they've got a lot of ratings, although we're not really too worried about Jensen. They tend to be, not have too many quantity most of the time.
They usually come in and out of a listing really quickly.
Yeah. We got Media Monkey with 1. We got Books Avenue with 1. Ube's Used Books, Snapbook. So essentially, what we're not seeing is Renu, Rock City Books, Apex. I don't know if I said Renu, Amazon Warehouse. So that's also a positive, right? The more green checks we can start adding up, the more confident we can be that this book is going to perform very well. And this would be a great example of a book that I would consider buying, because I think this could easily sell in the $45 to $60 range going into this next textbook season. So anything else you want to add there, Victor?
Yeah, I mean, just as a bonus tip there, there's 3 FBA sellers right there. Go and buy all 3 of those, and then the FBA price goes up into the 40s immediately. So that's actually a good tip there. But yeah. Great book. And I like the fact that there isn't any mega sellers with lots of units. So that's definitely a book I would purchase.
Absolutely. So we hope you enjoyed this video, very important video on how to dominate textbook season, because the last thing you want to be doing is buying a bunch of books, a bunch of college textbooks that have Rock City Books and Renu and Apex Media. And again, it's not that if you see Rock City Books that you should automatically not buy it. It's just you over time will get more experience with, okay, well, if Rock City Books has a bunch of copies relative to how often you think the book is going to sell during that season, that is a red flag.
Right.
But there are still some books that sell so often, Victor, that even if there's
100, right? I bought some of that even Renu had 100 copies. I was still fine with, because that book just sold so much during the next season.
And we're talking about books that would probably sell over 1,000 times, right?
Right.
I mean,
correct.
So hope this video helped. Make sure you tune into the next video, the next part of this How to Dominate Textbook Season. It's also going to be a great video, and we'll see you guys there. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.